Hi, welcome to the next session. Okay, so in this session, we'll discuss a little bit about the models. Okay, we have in Node.js. Okay, so before going, so in this session, we'll discuss about the events model, we'll discuss about the OS, or we'll discuss a little bit about the file system. Okay, now let's, without much wasting time, let's just go through the discussion on the event listener. Okay. All right. So I believe you have your no daemon already started. If not, then you can start your no daemon by just typing no daemon, then the file name that you are currently working on. Okay, so this file name, you just type it there, then run it. The node daemon will start running. Okay, now the first model that I want us to discuss will be what is called the OS, the operating system model. Okay, now to be able to use the OS, we need to import the model. Okay, so we'll first import the model um, using const OS. It is require then OS. Okay, so the require allows us to import the model that we want to use in our current directory. Okay, so whichever model you want to use, you just use the require, then you specify the model that you want to use. Okay, this variable name, okay, it doesn't matter. You can unpack it into any name that you wish. Okay, but I prefer that you use the same name as the model so that you know what exactly you are importing. Okay, you can choose to unpack two or more models, or two or more, you can choose to unpack two or more functions, okay, from the model. Okay, so if we have a lot of functions inside the OS model, all that you need to do is to specify, surround it with the curly brackets, okay, then separate the other ones with the comma. Okay, so either you use it to unpack two or more models, or two or more functions, sorry, two or more functions, okay, from the model. Okay, you use the curly bracket and unpack, you separate the various functions, okay, with comma. Okay, but I'm using just one, so I don't need to use the curly brackets. Okay, all right, so the OS model gives us more insights about the operating system we are working on. Okay, so we define a few functions, okay, that we have with the OS. Okay, the first one we'll look at is the memory, the free memory, so the available memory that we have in the current system that we are using. Okay, so let's console log it. Console log means that we want to see the output on our standard output, okay, which is here. Okay, now anytime you start typing and you get a feedback like this, don't get worried. What Node.js, what NodeDaemon does is that whenever you are typing, it tries to interpret whatever you are typing. So if it makes sense without any syntax error, it will give you the output. But if it doesn't make any sense, it will throw you the error. Okay. All right. Now, because I'm not done typing, that is why you are seeing this error. Okay, so let's say console log os dot. Let's look at arc. Okay, all right. So orange dot arc. Okay, now so this gives me my operating system. Okay, I'm using Windows 64-bit. I'm using a 64-bit, so you can see it right here outputted in my standard output. Okay, so you can see it here. Okay, there are more functions available. We will just pick a few more, then we can proceed. Okay, so we'll look at another function we call console log os free mem, which is a free memory. So it will give you the free memory, the available memory. Okay. All right. Um, Another function we also discuss is the console log OS. Then we have the home directory. Okay. All right. So it's giving me the current home directory. Okay. All right. There's another one. We have host name. So if you use os.hostname, it will show the name you have, the name you define on your system. Okay. All right. We also have another one. Let's look at just a few more. Then we can proceed. OS the release. So the type of Windows that we are using. So Windows release. So it will give you Windows 10. Okay. Then it will give you details on the operating system that you are using. Another few one we can just look at. Yeah, we can just go. Let's look at type console log OS type. Okay, as you can see here, it's giving me the type. Okay, the windows that I'm using, so the type of window I'm using. So you can see Windows empty. Okay, all right. So basically that is it. If you want a lot of model, if you want to know a lot of function, okay, you can refer to the documentary, okay, on Node.js, okay, which will give you a deeper, all basically all the functions, okay, that you require, okay, or that you will need. All right. So that is it for the OS model, our first model. Okay. Now our second model we'll quickly look at is called the event model. Okay. Now the event model, let's unpack it. Event meta require events. Okay. Okay. All right. So I've unpacked the events. If I want, we can also define it with node events. Okay. As I said earlier in my earlier discussion. So this one also means the same thing. Node events. Events. Okay. So this one will also mean the same thing as just using events. Okay. So it's basically the same thing. All right. So um, before we use the events, okay, the event model, we would have to create, okay, we would have to create an instance, okay, or create a subclass, okay, of the model. Okay, we want to create a subclass of the model. Okay, and um, in JS, okay, to create a subclass on the model, we use what is called the function or what is called the extents, okay, which creates a subclass on the model. So what we do is that we call this class. So we are creating a subclass, so we use class, then the name, my emitter, let's say we call it my emitter, then extends event emitter. Because we will not put anything in the subclass, we just have to close the curly brackets, okay? So that it will mean that we've completed it. If you do not close it, there is an error, okay? So you have to just close it. If you don't have any to put anything there, it means that this you just created the subclass, but you've not inputted any variable there. Okay, so when we are done creating the subclass, what we do next is that we also have to create the we will need to create the variable, okay, to hold or to create an instance of it. Okay, so to create that one, what we do is we have const, so we are creating an instance of the subclass that we created. Okay, so we have my emitter, that's the variable name that I want to use, the new my emitter. You understand? Okay. All right, it's a function, so we have to put it in brackets. Okay, we have to call the brackets. Okay, so this one creates an instance of the subclass, okay, that we created from the event model. All right, I think that settles it. Okay, now, so to be able to use the events, I don't know if you are familiar with JavaScript, and if you are familiar with how JavaScript works, you know that if we'll come back to JavaScript. If you're not familiar, no problem, just relax. We'll have a discussion on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, I will give you a little idea on how JavaScript works. Okay, all right. So in JavaScript, there's to define an event listener. Okay, you would have to define the type of event that you want. Okay, you have to define type of event that you want. Then, when you are done defining that type of event that you want, then you also have to define a callback. Okay, so the callback is more of like a function. Okay, now the callback will now run, okay, will now run when the event is triggered. So if, let's say, in a JavaScript, if we have a click event, okay, you define what it will do in the callback. So the callback is a function. Okay, now it's a function that will run when the event is triggered. Okay, all right. So we'll define a function here. We'll define the callback function here. So let's call this callback A. Okay. Um, close the brackets. Let's come here. Okay. So what I've just defined, okay, is a simple function. Okay, so I've defined a variable which will hold the function. Okay, so this is my function. So from here to here is my function, which will be unpacked into this variable. Do you understand? So this variable will hold or will run the function. Okay, so let's what we have inside this block. Let's call this console log A. So let's call this A. So it means that it will just console log A. Then we also have to create the so let's create the events, okay, that we want to trigger. All right. Now, what do I want to do? So I want to remove a particular listener. So with this particular event, I'm using the method called remove listener. Okay. So the remove listener, what it does is that it will remove a particular listener. Okay, or a particular listener. Okay, that we don't want it to run. All right. So to do that, I need to call the method remove listener. Okay. Um, so what events do I need? I need events. Okay. All right. Then I do a callback. Okay. Event B. Okay. So it means that it will remove what callback? It will remove event B. Okay. All right. It will remove the callback B. Okay. Now, because we've stated B, callback B there, it means that we need to define what callback B is. You understand? We need to define what callback B is. So let's go down here and now write our function for callback B. So we'll write callback B, um, callback B. I'm using an AI tool which autocomplete when you are typing. So you realize that when I start typing, then the AI just completes it. That is why it usually throws an error. Okay, now so I'm defining the function B, callback B. Okay, So let's define this function here. Okay, so what do we want the function to do? We want the function to just console log b. Okay, all right. That is basically what I want this function to do. It will just console log b. All right. In JavaScript, remember in JavaScript, when you are using JavaScript, you always have to end the curly bracket or end your statement with this. Okay, you understand? You always have to end the statement with a semicolon. Okay, all right. Now, the semicolon represent that, okay, you are telling the JavaScript, okay, compiler that, hey, I'm done. Okay, I'm done with this statement for this line. Okay, so it should end it, right? Okay, so if JavaScript is very lenient, so even if you don't even input the or end your line with a semicolon, it will still go through. It will still be lenient with you. Okay, yeah. But when we get to um, applications, so when we get to applications like the SCSS, okay, which we use to code CSS. Okay, so CSS, so the SAS. Okay, with the SAS, for instance, it's ensures that to when we complete or when we end the statement, we need to end the statement with a semicolon. Okay, if you do not add the semicolon, it will trigger an error. I'm sure when we get to SAS or we get to the SCSS, okay, we'll see what we are talking about here. Okay, so after defining the callback B function, now let me call the let me run the function now. Okay, now you can see that there's nothing running here because I've not called the function. Okay, all right. So now let me call the function now. So I say my emitter dot on. Okay, so I use the method on. Okay, then I call events, then callback, callback a. Okay, all right. Then let's call the second one, my emitter dot event dot callback b. Right. Okay, and let's run this event and let's see what happens. Okay. So node one design. Okay, so this. I'm coming. Hold on. Let me just redirect the page to redirect it to this path. So CD, CD. Okay. All right. So we are back. All right. So let's now run the function. So we have my events, then we have emit events. Okay. All right. So if you watch here, when I call the function, okay, so after defining it, so after calling this to, okay, when I call the event. Okay, so what the on does is the my emitter dot on. It means that we are placing an event on this function. Okay, okay, and the name of the event. Okay, the event that will be triggered is called the event. Okay, so we define it in this manner. That when we are done, then we use the emit to trigger the event. So what the emit does is that the emit runs or executes the event. Okay, all right. So you realize that when I use the emit, it now console log the A and B. Okay, right, which is A here, which is A here, okay, and B here. All right, now look at what happens when um, I do this. My emitter dot emit events. Now, can you see what happens? All right. So when I called this event, okay, my emitter dot emit the second time, what happens is that the B is no longer triggered. Okay, so you can see A, B, A. Okay, the first one triggered A and triggered B. Okay, but the second call triggered only A. So because B over here, we say we use the function or the method remove listener. Okay, so it removed the B. Okay, so it removed the B events or the B listener. Okay, so when we called it on the second time, we realized that the B no longer displays. It's only the A that displays. All right. Okay. So this is just a little introduction on how events really works. Okay. So if you want to place an event, so on if you want to place a listener on an or on an event, okay, or you want to include a listener, then you can go through this. There are over this function. When we go to the when we use HTML, you realize that when we use the remove listener, we use what's called the add listener or the add event listener. Okay, all right. So when we get there, we'll use that one as well. Okay, but this is just to show you how event works in JavaScript. Okay, and in Node.js. Okay, all right. So aside the events listener, then we'll look at one more. Then we can move on to the next discussion. Okay, so let's look at another. Let's clear this one. Then okay, so I'll clear this, but I'll leave the model because I'll still be using the model. Okay. Um, I'll still be using a model, so I'll need a model. Then I'll just clear from here to here. So if you like, I just clear from here to here. Okay. Okay. So just clear from here to here. All right. Now let's look at a different, let's say a different model. Okay. All right. So, but okay, before we look at a different model, let's look at another function that we have in the event model. Okay. So we'll look at this function. So there's a function here called once. Okay, then we call the event emitter. So event emitter is a function. Okay, once is also a function in it. What once does is that it's console log that event only once. Okay, all right. So let's look at a function here. Okay, let's look at the function here. All right, so the function we'll use this time around, the previous discussion that we did, the previous discussion, we used a function that we unpack, that we had to put a function in a variable. Okay, now this time around, we create a function using the async and await. Okay, now the async and await is another great feature that comes with JS. Okay, that's JavaScript. It comes with JavaScript because JavaScript is basically an asynchronous system. Okay, which uses promise. Okay, which uses async and await. Um, so it's a callback function though, but this time around, what the async and await does is that the async and await will allow you to define your function, okay, but the await, what await does is that it's an asynchronous because it doesn't want to pause, or it doesn't want to block other functions from running. So it will await, okay, that. So that's why you use the await, that's asynchronous, because we don't want to use blocking. We don't want to go through, we don't want the function to be blocked, or we don't want users, when users, maybe if maybe a user needs, let's say, or is trying to retrieve data from the database, okay, or read a file, okay, because we don't want to block our program or cause our program to delay, okay, the program can delay because if let's say it's reading a file, okay, the file will take a longer time, okay, and if we are using a synchronous, okay, a synchronous system, then it means that what happens is that it will break, okay, or it will delay, okay, waiting for the file to finish executing. Or if let's say we want to read a file, we want the file to finish executing before other programs can go through. But because we don't want to do that in that way, we use the asynchronous. Okay, so we'll use what is called the async and await. To use the async and await, we define async. Okay, so all the time, if you want to use the async and await, you precede the function declaration with async. Okay, so we use the async, then we have run. Run is the name of the function. Then we now create our block. Okay, now let's define a variable called EE. Then we create an instance of the event emitter. Okay, so we have process, okay, which is also another method or another function that we have, okay, in Node.js, okay. So which is called a process, okay, which processes a request, okay. All right. It has several functions. It has several methods as well. Okay. The one we'll be working with is called the next click. Right. Okay. So we define our function here. So we close the function. Now let's define what's brackets here. Okay. So we can now define what we want.